And I wonder if there's anybody more anxious than Tito Mboweni this morning.
That's right, an unenviable balancing act. But I get the sense that Tito Mboweni is not the kind of person who gets too anxious. He comes across certainly as very confident in his demeanour. I've got the chair of the Finance Portfolio Committee with me, Eunice Karim. Eunice, I mean, Tito Mboweni is a long-standing member of the ruling party. He has that gravitas. Do you think that he was widely accepted? His appointment went down well.
For different reasons, I think the market has been very warm towards him, given his role in the past and his conduct in those roles. But to some extent, also within the broad tripartite alliance, there has been a positive response to his appointment. Of course, this MTBPS and even more the budget that comes in next February will tell whether people who have got the views they do right now will keep to them.
So you've got one side of the fence saying we've got to cut down on spending, yes, and the other side an increase in spending, certainly on social issues and social spend. How is he going to do that balancing act?
Well, there's a lot of spending that's unnecessary, wasteful. We need to tackle corruption, underperforming programs, slot and the like, much of which is still there, though in the last 3 years and more, that has slowly begun to erode. So the spending that's be directed to social services, health, education, welfare grants and so on, can be increased, while at the same time money saved from programs that are not performing and that are not really necessary to the immediate needs of the people out there. So it doesn't mean you have to expand the budget. It means quite simply you have to reprioritize it.
So he's rearranging. Do you expect anything on ailing state-owned enterprises like SAA?
I think he'll be very cautious about that. We're very concerned about what we call in finance parlance contingent liabilities, where the government offers guarantees for loans that state-owned entities take. There's been a remarkable improvement in less than 6 months on the redirection of state-owned entities. You can see it in Eskom, Transnet and the like. And I think that's quite positive. Of course, our main concern would be to look at how this budget contributes towards economic growth, job creation and the reduction of inequalities. In particular, we'd like to see what the details are about the President's economic stimulus and recovery plan. And more importantly, we've had so many plans before, as even we in the ANC would agree, and there's not been sufficient implementation. So in the first instance, we'd like to know what is government going to do to oversee the implementation of its economic stimulus and recovery plan. And we ourselves as Parliament, as the Standing Committee on Finance in particular, commit ourselves, working with other committees, not least the Appropriations Committee, to ensure that what government talks about in respect of its recovery plan and stimulus is actually done. We have no choice. In particular also, what does the budget signal about the possibilities of investment which we so desperately need? There is, of course, the major investment conference looming on Friday and Saturday, I think it is. And so it is that we look forward to seeing what investments are brought in. In particular, we'd like to stress, you can't expect global investors to come in if domestic investors won't actually come to the party. And we think that the President Ramaphosa administration has signaled enough to suggest to the private sector that it's in their interests to get involved more in the economy. They can get their profits. That's not mutually exclusive to delivering on social goals and developmental goals, and we think it can be done. But our partnership as government, well, as government and as Parliament, with private sector has to go with an effective partnership with the labour movement and with civil society. All of us, labour, government, Parliament, civil society. We have no choice. We have to work together. The issue is on what terms we work together, and the issue is implementing programs that we agree to in words.
Talking about good governance, do you expect any mention of VBS yesterday, as William Kize, the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, saying no bailout or rescue for VBS or the municipalities?
Yes, we understand that, and that doesn't mean that the Minister, the Department and the Provincial Department shouldn't do more to assist the municipalities to contend with the current crisis they have. He also said they're going to try to rescue, as did the Deputy Minister of Finance, as much of the money that's been lost as possible. He, the Minister, has signalled that he would have a lot to say about VBS today. And our main concern as a committee is to ensure that there's decisive and swift action against the wrongdoers, not just those who actually were part of the bank, but those who were in partnership with them. But also, once again, you see, it's KPMG that surfaces as allegedly having done wrong. And we've urged the Independent Regulatory Board for Auditors to act against them. And indeed, I spoke to Mr. Bernard Ogallis last week. He said, in fact, that they did start an inquiry into KPMG when the initial report, the initial issue surfaced in the public. That's their job, so they did that. But now that Mr. Advocate Mutau's report has been released, there's a much more substantial basis, it seems, for IRBA, the Regulatory Board for Auditors, to act more swiftly. We also feel very bad about, needless to say, about the depositors. Ultimately, they are our primary concern because they've lost out, and while there's no bailout projected, surely the retail depositors should get as much as possible over time of what they deposited. You're talking here of stokvels, you're talking here of burial societies, you're talking here of pensioners. These are lower income, poor people who should never have to bear with this, as usually happens with banks. Well, finally, may I put this to you? When we suggest that the VBS Mutual should be rescued, we're not talking about rescuing the criminals or the alleged criminals. They must be dealt with decisively. Our argument is that if there's a possibility, they should be rescued because of the significance of this bank, because of its need for the financial sector at least to be transformed and diversified. And when we did our financial sector transformation report last year, one of the issues we raised is these smaller banks should also, over time, with the support of the Reserve Bank and other organs of state, grow. So no, it's not like a blanket support for its rescue. Let's hear from the Reserve Bank and the National Treasury on the 7th of November in our committee meeting. We will also have the Hawks, the NPA and others. Let's hear from them why it is that they feel it can't be rescued. So it's not rescue at all costs. And our primary focus is deal with the corrupt or allegedly corrupt people, signal that we cannot stand this anymore. That's our main point.
Thank you so much, Yunus Karim, Chair of the Finance Portfolio Committee. And as is tradition, Uveka, the Finance Minister, after his midterm budget speech and main budget speech in February, he always briefs that committee and unpacks it with MPs who may have questions for him the following day. So at 10 o'clock tomorrow, Tito Mboweni will be briefing that Finance Portfolio Committee and all questions that MPs from across party lines can ask him questions.
Great. Thanks very much, Annika Larsen there.